Well, welcome everybody. Again, this is Brian Hart, the Executive Director of the Southeast Land Trust of New Hampshire. This is a totally new experience for me and for many of our staff. So if there are technical difficulties, bear with us. We've done our best to make the Zoom experience as interesting and as smooth as possible. And as part of that, we have a little introductory slide that we'll show you here about some of the features in Zoom. So everybody is automatically muted when they've arrived. This prevents feedback and sound being carried through and interrupting the presentation. If you have questions, you can use the chat feature at the bottom of the screen and ask a specific panelist or all panelists. And you can also raise your hand to make sure you can ask a question as well and get our attention. We do have some staff members who will be monitoring the chat, and much of tonight is pre-recorded, trying to make this experience as interesting as possible, and you'll see that soon enough. And parts of it are live as well. So during those pre-recorded portions, you'll have the chance to ask those questions via chat and likely get an answer while that's happening. So with that, I'm going to turn the evening over to Sam Reed, our board president. And thank you again for coming.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Sam Reed. I'm president of the board of Southeast Land Trust of New Hampshire. Thank you for joining us tonight for our annual meeting. Believe us when we tell you that we'd much rather be in person, but obviously circumstances have not allowed that to happen this year. We're hopeful we'll be back together with you in person next year to celebrate everything that SELT has accomplished. I'm here tonight at the Franklin McElnany Preserve in Rollinsford. As you may know, Rollinsford is a small town between Dover and the Maine border. It's comprised of beautiful fields, woods, and we have quite a few conservation projects in Rollinsford to preserve its natural beauty for generations to come. The Franklin McElnany Preserve was started by Mabel and Walter Franklin in 1993. They granted the predecessor to SELT, Stratford Rivers Conservancy, 46 acres of land abutting the Salmon Falls River. That land was augmented by 27 acres donated by Victor and Ruth McElnany. The property consists of 3/4 of a mile of frontage along the Salmon Falls River. Present are areas of high salt marsh where shorebirds nest. It's beautiful, and if you get a chance to come out here and take a walk, please do. We have a kiosk and trails to make it very easy. Don't be surprised if you see a bald eagle fly by, as I've personally seen a bald eagle nest not far from this property. And now back to business. Tonight we'll be highlighting SELT's successes over the past year and several key people who helped make that possible. We'll also have our traditional annual meeting where you, our membership, will be electing our incoming board of directors. Lastly, we'll be sharing SELT's goals for this year and beyond. Some of these sections have been pre-recorded. Some, including the voting in of new board members, will be live. I ask you for your participation. We'll be sure to let you know when that happens so that you can participate. Our core mission is simple. We save, steward, and share the lands you love in southeastern New Hampshire. With your help, SELT had great success last year. Every year that I've been president, I say we had an incredible year, the best year ever. Well, I can say it again. This was by far our best year ever. We completed our largest conservation project to date, the 2,000-acre Birch Ridge Community Forest in New Durham, New Hampshire. Secondly, we opened for public access Stonehouse Forest in Barrington. If you haven't been there yet, please make a point of getting there. It's 1,500 acres, 2 ponds, beautiful wetlands, and it links up with our Stonehouse Pond conservation area. It's truly worth a visit. And last year, we increased our volunteers by an incredible 66%. If you have any interest in becoming a volunteer, we have plenty of room for you. Please join our community. It's really worth the effort. And finally, in partnership with our good friends at the White Pine program in York, Maine, we started a nature-based education program for kids. We're doing that at our future home, Burley Farms in Epping. We look forward to expanding our education programs for not only kids, but old folks like me. Without your support, SELT would merely be an organization with big dreams, but little accomplishments. Thankfully, that's not the case. Our successes are your successes, and we thank you sincerely for all you've done for us. I'd also like to take a moment to thank my fellow board members. There's an adage about being on a board and donating time, treasure, or talents. We're lucky to have all three of those T's from our board members. It's really a wonderful group of people, all committed to doing what's best to save these beautiful properties that we're able to enjoy. And last but not least, we have to thank the staff of SELT. It's incredible that we've been able to attract and retain some of the best conservation-minded people with expertise that's way beyond what we would expect. So it's not a surprise when we accomplish all we've accomplished, because we have an amazing staff who does incredible things every day. We'll get back to highlighting SELT successes in a moment after we complete the formal business meeting. The business meeting consists of recognizing retiring board members and, with your approval, electing new board members. Toward that end, I have the pleasure of introducing SELT's Secretary of the Board, Joni Pratt. You'll be asked to vote on our slate of nominees following Joni's presentation via a live poll. The poll will appear on your screen. Simply click yes or no to register your vote when prompted.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joni Pratt, and I'm here at Stout Oak Farm in Brentwood. Being here seemed a fitting way to share the sustained impacts that you, our SELTies, have made possible through your generosity. Just over 9 years ago, SELT partnered with the town of Brentwood, the Lyford family, and farmers Kate and Jeff Donald to permanently conserve this farm and keep it a working farm. Farms like this one and so many others in our region have stepped up during the past 3 months of the COVID-19 pandemic to respond to the increased demand for local foods. I'm especially proud of SELT's work on farmland conservation, and there's so much more to come. Earlier this year, Brentwood voters overwhelmingly passed a warrant article to help conserve the former game farm, and like Stout Oak Farm, helped transition it to a new farm owner. As Secretary of the Board, it is my role to share with you the proposed slate of board members for 3-year terms. We've asked each to introduce themselves with a short video.
Hi everyone, my name is Malin Clyde and I'm from Durham, New Hampshire. I'm really excited to be joining SELT's board as a new member. I have worked for UNH for about 20 years. I'm just so excited to start to give back to SELT, an organization I really love, and particularly about their investment in trails and connecting people to the outdoors. They've done incredible conservation work, including in my own town of Durham. But my passion is about volunteerism and stewardship, and I just think there's really exciting opportunities, particularly with fee-owned lands like Burley Farms, to really engage people in volunteering and education to connect more people to the outdoors.
Hi everyone, I'm Reggie Hall. I grew up in Rye and I currently live in Hampton. I work for one of the national conservation organizations where I help other land trusts achieve their own conservation goals. I currently serve on SELT's Acquisitions Committee, and I look forward to joining the board and saving more special places in a community that I love.
Hi, my name is Vijay Strell. I've served on SELT's Finance Committee since the fall of 2018 and its board since the fall of 2019. My husband Craig and I moved to Newcastle in 2010, and we're proud to call New Hampshire our home. As avid outdoorsmen, on any given day you'll find us on our waterways, in the forests, on our trails, or in the mountains. I'm honored to be able to support the amazingly talented team of professionals at SELT in the conservation and stewardship of the lands we have come to love. It just seems the right thing to do, not only to acknowledge the joy we derive from these lands, but as a way to give back. Thank you, SELTies, for the opportunity to serve.
Hi, I'm Rob Wolfchuk, and I live in Brentwood with my partner Heather. I've had the privilege to serve on the board of SELT the last few years, and I'm currently the treasurer. I look forward to helping SELT move forward and continue to conserve important properties in our area and provide amazing educational and recreational opportunities. Thank you.
All right, everybody, this is the opportunity for us to make a motion to accept a slate of candidates. And I see that Scott Marion, a board member from Rye, has made a motion to accept the slate of candidates. Is there a second out there? Oh, all right. Robin Najar and Brent Miriam have seconded the motion, so thank you both. So now is the opportunity for all you participants to vote on this slate of candidates, and you will shortly see a poll pop up on your screen, and just click yes or no or abstain and then submit your answer. And shortly we will have the results. This is a formality of our bylaws, which require the membership to elect the officer, the board of directors. So bear with us. I know this is can be a surprising part of an annual meeting. And I know we have about 70 participants signed up and we have 54 votes. So if there's any more folks out there, we'll close it when we get to 1 minute on this poll, which is about 15 seconds away. Great, not a surprise, but we have overwhelming support for the slate of candidates. And thank you all for volunteering to become a part of SELT's leadership team. Continued service and leadership to SELT. Also, welcome to the newest board members. I also, now we get to, sorry about that. We get to have another video from Sam thanking our, here we go. So you can see some of the technical glitches, the challenges, but here we go. Sam, again, introducing and thanking our retiring board members.
As we welcome new board members, let's take a moment to thank our 4 retiring board members, Linda McGivern, Robin Najar, Joni Pratt, and Ann Welsh. Combined, they have over 50 years of experience working on behalf of Stratford Rivers Conservancy, Seacoast Land Trust, and now Southeast Land Trust of New Hampshire. Following are a few words about each of them. There's a cliche, walk the walk and talk the talk. In my mind, that clearly describes Linda McGivern and conservation. She's been a board member of Stratford Rivers Conservancy and Southeast Land Trust since 1993. And shortly before the merger of Stratford Rivers Conservancy and Southeast Land Trust, she served as Stratford Rivers Executive Director, stepping up when our longtime executive director resigned to take another job. Linda and her husband Ben have hosted parties at their beautiful home in Rollinsford. They've actually donated a conservation easement on their land abutting their home. Linda has walked the walk and talked the talk, and I sincerely thank her on behalf of SELT's Board of Directors for her time and involvement and energy and passion towards conservation. Linda says that her favorite project is a project that's not done yet. That's our planned construction of a conservation center at Burley Farms in Epping. And Linda likes that because of our focus on nature-based education there. Thank you, Linda. Thank you for your time and attention and energy.
Welcome, all you Salties. Thank you for being with us today. And I have the pleasure now to recognize one of our founding board members who will be leaving us this year. Robin Najar was one of the founding members of the Seacoast Land Trust, and she also became its first president. The background I find very interesting is that Seacoast Land Trust came about as a result of Robin's efforts to protect Belle Isle, an island in the Piscataqua River, which is the home of the Lady Isle School. The effort to protect the island was a total success, and the money that was left over from this effort was used to create the Seacoast Land Trust, which ultimately merged to become the Southeast Land Trust. Robin has always been an enthusiastic member of the board, and what I will always remember most about her is the insightful questions she asked. And she asked these questions to make sure we were making good decisions, and I believe we really have, and I thank her for that. Robin is also the person who recruited me to join the board of the Southeast Land Trust, and I am delighted that she did it, and I have enjoyed my years of participation. Robin is a true warrior for conservation, and you will always be missed, period.
Hi Celties, this is Beverly Shadley. I'm SELT's Deputy Director, and I have the true honor and privilege tonight of thanking Joni Pratt for her 9 years of board service with the Southeast Land Trust, including most recently service as our board secretary. Joni, I think I speak for most of us in saying how very deeply we're going to miss you. Part of your service to SELT that I find particularly inspiring is your early and enthusiastic support of SELT's efforts to connect people to place and engage more people on our lands. And that's why I think you were such an early and strong proponent of SELT's Center for People and Nature at Burley Farms, which included working with Tim and Sarah to establish your family's special fund to help construct this center. Truly, that's been a highlight of my work here at SELT, and I thank you so much for letting me into your life and that part of your family to work with you on that project. Joni, we are going to miss you deeply. SELT's loss is some other nonprofit's sincere and fortunate gain, and I just can't wait to see everything else you do with other organizations around the Seacoast. Thank you for everything you've done, and best of luck, my friend.
SELT is very fortunate to have had Ann Welsh and her passion for the environment and open spaces on our board. Ann has served on the Durham Conservation Commission and was a volunteer board member for the Stratford Rivers Conservancy. When SRC and SELT merged, Ann had always been impressed by SELT's work and enthusiastically agreed to serve on our board. She was already familiar with the organization. She had worked with us on the conservation of Amber Acres and the Oyster River Forest. During her tenure at SRC and SELT, her favorite project was Stonehouse Forest. She has always loved Stonehouse Pond, conserved during her time with the SRC, and feels that the addition of Stonehouse Forest created a wonderful network of trails and open space for outdoor recreation opportunities in Stratford County, where she lives. As a board member, Ann has always been willing to lend a hand no matter what is needed. She does it all, from pulling garlic mustard, staffing the outreach table, participating on leadership committees, and lending a hand at events. Ann's dedication and dependability will be truly missed.
Thank you for your tremendous contributions of time, talent, and treasure on behalf of Southeast Land Trust of New Hampshire and all of the birds, bees, flowers, and trees. We're going to miss you, and we look forward to seeing you at upcoming SELT events or out on the trails. Thank you very much. Now it's my pleasure to turn the evening over to Brian Hart, our amazing Executive Director, who will guide us through a summary of our 2019 achievements.
Well, thank you, Sam, again for your continued service and leadership to SELT, and welcome to the newest board members. I also want to extend my appreciation to Joni, Robin, Linda, and Ann You've all contributed to SELT in such unique and lasting ways, and we will miss you on your engagement with the board. It's really my privilege and joy to talk about our successes last year, and they're organizational wide, and all of us have contributed to it, and all of you as our SELTies. As you heard from Sam, our land conservation numbers are impressive, the most land conserved again in a single year. But beyond these numbers, our work is fundamentally about place and the relationship of people to those places. Tonight, I'm going to share some overall summaries of impact and highlight a few projects in greater detail. A full summary of our projects will be shared in our 2019 annual report, which will be out later this summer. Conservation projects are alive in their own right. They sprout from seeds sown years ago, grow in directions of their own prompted by factors beyond our control. And like those first fresh summer tomatoes in New Hampshire, they're often take far longer than we hoped to bring to maturity. Typically, from the first phone call to a closing, a conservation project can take 2 to 3 years, but sometimes even longer. So in hopes that you are eating a farm fresh dinner, let's start with our farm projects. In 2019, we partnered with 3 landowners to conserve 3 different working farms. Each of these farms represents some of the unique challenges of farming in our local agricultural economy. We've chosen to highlight tonight Barker's Farm because of its long-standing commitment to the community, 100 plus years as a working farm. Barker's Farm in Stratham is known by many of our SELTies and loved for its plentiful veggies and flowers. With its roadside stand on Route 108 and the smiles of its staff, Barker's is a community-loved farm. When it was conserved last summer, mother-daughter farmers Edie and Forrest expressed their deep appreciation in a thank you letter that was sent to donors. It is so wonderful to know that Forrest and I live in a community that loves the farm and land as much as we do. With your generous support, Barker's Farm will continue to never skip a beat, and Gordon Barker's legacy will live forever. From the bottom of our hearts, we thank you. And never skip a beat is kind of their motto. They love beats over at Barker's Farm. So we thank you, Edie and Forrest, and each of these landowners, and all who contributed to make the conservation of these working farms possible. SELT's work to protect and safeguard our drinking water supply lands continued to make progress with 2 conservation easements completed in Farmington and a new SELT reservation acquired in Epping along the wild and scenic Lamprey River. The Farmington easements represent the final 2 parts of an integrated project that resulted in the conservation of 313 acres of land near the City of Rochester's public water supply reservoirs. Special thanks to the City of Rochester for donating an easement on the city's own land, a critical part of the matching funds necessary to secure a grant from the New Hampshire Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund. Our successful partnership continues to this day with new projects being evaluated in consultation with Rochester. SELT's efforts to conserve large blocks of unfragmented lands that we call living landscapes that are important for wildlife, ecological functioning, and recreation made huge strides last year. As you can see on this slide, we had 10 projects completed, protecting more than 2,650 acres within conservation focus areas scattered around our region. In particular, our vision of connecting Pawtuckaway State Park to Great Bay continues. We are especially excited about the acquisition of the Thayer property on the Lamprey River, adjacent to our Burley Farms, and the expansion of the 2 Rivers Wildlife Preserve just northeast. On this map, the star represents Burley Farms, and the Thayer property is over here, and the 2 Rivers Wildlife Preserve is here. These 2 properties are part of the goal of conserving an entire river corridor and the unmaintained Diamond Hill Road, expanding opportunities for recreation, wildlife management, and other benefits of larger blocks of open space. There's no doubt that the highlight of last year was the acquisition of the 2,027-acre Birch Ridge Community Forest in New Durham, capping what was a 10-year effort by the community SELT partnered with the Merry Meeting Lake Association and Moose Mountain Regional Greenways to complete this purchase and become SELT's largest reservation. It was truly a community effort, and we're fortunate to have such strong support from community members, including our steering committee and the extra efforts of some people in particular, including Charlie Bridges, who's the chair, Lee Alexander, Mike Gelinas, Matt Murphy, both of them from the Snowmobile Club, and Russ Weldon, and countless others who continue to give to their community through this forest. This property boasts 10 miles of current and proposed trails, offers amazing scenic views of Merry Meeting Lake and Mount Washington, and a diversity of habitats. Last summer, the community celebrated with more than 100 people attending a Ridgetop event. It's something we hope we can do again in the future. I would be remiss right now if I did not take a moment to acknowledge the incredible generosity of 3 landowners, Jane Burley, Ernie and Nancy Belleville, and Betty Marie Horsberg. Each of these landowners donated land or a conservation easement to SELT in 2019, and we marvel at such gifts of generosity. Thank you for entrusting SELT as your partner in stewardship. Our conservation projects are supported by all of our staff and are executed by the talented team led by Dwayne Hyde, our conservation director, Jeremy Luigi, our conservation projects manager and farmland coordinator, and Sean Dillon, our conservation coordinator. Kudos to each of them and the whole team for these amazing successes last year. So now it's our opportunity to recognize our 2020 Jack Heath Conservation Award recipient. Jack was the founder of the Rockingham Land Trust, and this award is presented by the board to honor and recognize vision, leadership, and enduring support of conservation in SELT service area. To announce the recipient of this year's Jack Heath Award, we asked Jamie French, who's the president of the board of the Land Trust Alliance and a Portsmouth resident and conservation leader, as well as Robin Najar, SELT board member, to share some words.
Robin Najar and I are here this morning to announce the award winner of the Jack Heath Award. We're pleased to give it this year to a woman who has been a steadfast supporter of the Southeast Land Trust and conservation in New Hampshire, as well as in the Seacoast, for her entire lifetime. Martha Fuller Clark was one of the early advocates of the concept of a land of LCHIP, originally the Land and Community Heritage Commission. And that concept, which was unique in the country at the time, of linking the historic preservation community with the conservation community, you can't protect the church or the community center if the hillscape behind it is developed. Was a very important concept, and Martha was a fierce advocate to make sure that that was brought to the final legislation. She also has been relentless in protecting LCHIP as we know it today.
Martha's involvement with the land trust community dates back to the early 90s, when a small group of us in Portsmouth, myself, Martha, Jamie French, and a couple of other folks were concerned about development potential on a piece of land called Belle Isle or Lady Isle. There was a developer that wanted to put 30-some condos on that. We were fighting that development and we won, and we ended up having $47 left in our account, and we decided to open start a land trust with that money because it became clear to us during the process that there wasn't a land trust in this area. Martha was instrumental in mentoring me and helping me along the way and guiding me in the beginning and helping get the land trust started. We couldn't have done it without her help. I know I certainly couldn't. Early on, when the Seacoast Land Trust and the Rockingham Land Trust were competing with each other somewhat, we didn't know each other, and it was clear that we really should be joining forces. And Martha was instrumental in gathering us together at her house to get to know each other and start that whole merger process together. We have
now become this great organization, the Southeast Land Trust of New Hampshire.
Thank you, Martha, for your decades of support for conservation and preservation and reminding us all of the linkage between historic preservation and our historic working landscape and making sure that that's there for future generations of New Hampshire citizens.
And thank you, Martha, for being a friend of the Land Trust. You've been there from the beginning and you've supported us all the way through. We really couldn't have done it without you, and we really are appreciative of all of your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamie and Robin, and congratulations, Senator Fuller Clark. I also want to say my own words of appreciation to you, Martha. We had the chance to speak earlier today, and it was wonderful to connect with you, and I know how busy you are. I'm not sure if you realize, but my roots in conservation work are with the Land and Community Heritage Commission, which you were part of and which transformed our work as SELT, and who would have known that would have happened. Over those last 20 years, LCHIP alone has supported more than 20 of SELT's conservation projects, places that we all know and love. So you've had a lasting impact here with us, as well as so many other places in this state. Thank you so much for helping make that possible. Stewarding the lands you love is the second part of SELT's mission. 2019 saw more progress on opening our lands for recreation with the grand opening of the Stonehouse Forest Trail System. Over in Newfields, we completed a 300-foot-long bridge that established a loop trail and converted a winter access-only trail to year-round use. Now, I used to live in Newmarket. We went there during the pandemic, and let me tell you, it was a Saturday, and I've never seen so many people on this property or using the bridge. It was a wonderful sight to see. And during these past few months of the pandemic, these properties and others have become a respite for you and so many others. We've never seen visitation this high, and it makes all of the trail planning and work feel even more valuable. A huge thank you to retired land manager Phil Oger, current land manager Parker Sherman, our seasonal stewards, and SELT's amazing volunteers who put the hard work in to create and improve these trail systems that have comforted so many during the COVID-19 pandemic. Outside of trails, SELT focused on our stewardship of existing lands. In Brentwood, for example, we restored the former gravel pit at the DeYoung Freilich Conservation Area on the Exeter River, improving it for turtle habitat and creating early successional habitat. You can see the transformation that was beginning with these before and after photos. And in Rollinsford, our Franklin McElhaney Working Group came to consensus on how to address the destructive infestation of hemlock woolly adelgid in the Franklin McElhaney Preserve. Our Deputy Director, Bev Shadley, and Stewardship Director, Debbie Gord, deserve special recognition for engaging deeply with the community to reach consensus. The proposed approach addresses both the community's and SELT's concerns to care for a property loved by so many. We hope to begin implementation of this plan later this summer. Easement stewardship is the quiet work that SELT performs year in and year out. It's not as eye-catching or glamorous as new trails or parking areas or habitat transformation, but it's equally significant. Last year, again, was a successful year for our monitoring and for cultivating our landowner relationships. Our stewardship team, led by Debbie, with the help of stewards, seasonal stewards, and volunteers, monitored 100% of the 197 active easements at that time, helping landowners keep the promise of conservation. So as we celebrate stewardship by SELT, it also presents us with the opportunity to celebrate stewardship by others. The Ashton Hallett Award for Exemplary Stewardship was established by SELT's Board of Directors to honor the original founder of Stratford Rivers Conservancy, Ash Hallett, and to recognize a person or organization that has made significant contributions to the exemplary stewardship of land. To introduce this year's Ash Hallett Award winner, we're honored to have Richard Ober, president of the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, join us by a pre-recorded video.
What a treat to be able to honor one great conservationist, George Lovejoy, with an award named after another, Ash Hallett. I had the great pleasure of knowing both of these terrific men. My name is Dick Ober, and I'm here to talk with you a little bit about George Lovejoy. Half of my career has been spent in land conservation and half in philanthropy, and I've also had a side vocation in writing. And the thing that has always connected those pieces for me is the connections that people have with place, how place shapes who we are, and in turn, how we shape the places that we love. The Lovejoy family symbolizes all those things and how they're interconnected. Land and philanthropy and caring for one another, and especially in the person of George Lovejoy. I didn't get to know George until pretty late in his life, although I had known of him for decades. And once I started to be a friend with George, I wondered why I had waited so long. Yes, of course, George was a hugely successful businessman in Boston. And yes, he and Westy define what families mean. Not only today's families, but for them going back generations and forward generations. So I'd go down and visit George and Westy a couple times a year over the last few years, and we would have these far-ranging conversations about books, about forestry, about farming, about philanthropy and politics and mutual friends. But we'd always start and end with talking about the land. And it was always specifically about the remarkable place known as the Blue Hills Foundation. There really is nothing quite like Blue Hills in either my philanthropy or my conservation experience in New Hampshire going back, pushing 35 years. Just think of this, 7,500 acres of interconnected farm and forest land, wetlands, hiking trails, wildlands, put together piece by piece over the course of 6 decades by George. That kind of legacy, there are some words for it. Stewardship is probably almost too narrow a word to define how George and Westy and their 4 sons and their partners and now their children and their grandchildren relate to this remarkable place called Blue Hills. So yes, of course, this 7,500 acre assemblage of land is managed extremely well and under careful forest management plans. And yes, more than half of it is permanently protected. And yes, it's a research laboratory, and not only for one university, but for 2, both UNH and Harvard. And yes, of course, it's open for passive recreation for the Lovejoy's neighbors in their community and surrounding communities. And yes, the family has all these great partnerships with youth camps and with land trusts and with community groups on top of universities. And yes, there's George sitting in his hayfield that produces some of the absolute finest hay in northern New England. So all those questions about what it means to be great stewards with this family and with George always answered yes, yes, yes. But even that doesn't capture something else. And that's the passion, the drive, the creativity, the vision that drove George to create Blue Hills Foundation piece by piece over those years. And it doesn't capture another word, and that word's love. So the last time I saw George was last fall with Westy and Philip and Bev and Brian and a group of friends that we'd gathered to explore the vision for Blue Hills to expand the family's mission even more deeply into environmental education. Near the end of the day, we were all at the high spot in the field above the farm. Behind us was the family plot. And what I saw when I looked at George was simple. One man's love for his family and for his land and his community inextricably and forever woven together into that remarkable place called Blue Hills. Thank you, George. We miss you.
Thank you, Dick, and congratulations to the Lovejoy family who will undoubtedly carry on the legacy and vision of George through the Blue Hills Foundation and the land he has so carefully acquired and stewarded. Over the past 5 years, SELT has transformed its outreach programs to engage more people in SELT's mission, capturing and channeling their passion for our work. From our SELTie book club to Hike It Baby trips to celebrations of conserved land, we engaged more than 2,200 people through our events last year. I want to acknowledge Zoe Aldag, our outreach and volunteer manager, who's sitting here next to me, for her skilled work in envisioning and developing these programs, which have grown to more than 70 under her leadership. In addition, Allison Bolia, our development specialist, grew our business sponsorship program for our events to more than $48,000 last year. Last year, we established a new partnership with the White Pine programs to host monthly adventures at Burley Farms for youth age 7 to 14. Through day-long outings, more than 40 kids learned fire making, wild edibles, shelter building, and more, all while empowering compassion, respect, self-awareness, and community. We believe this is a model for how SELT can expand our place-based programming that we can replicate going forward. And I have had my own son participate in this, and he loves it, bringing home new and exciting ideas and experiences each time. One of our biggest assets is our volunteers. Last year, Zoe also led the expansion of our volunteer program, which led to an increase of 66% in the number of active SELT volunteers to 216. We're blessed to have such deeply engaged, caring, and committed volunteers who extend and enhance our capacity to achieve our mission. From building kiosks, to clearing invasive species, to stuffing mailings, to serving on a committee or the board, volunteers help SELT in every imaginable way. It's my honor to extend our appreciation and sincere thanks to all of our volunteers. And we express this each fall at our volunteer appreciation party. Last year, 70 people gathered as we celebrated their collective good work. It's also the time when we recognize a volunteer with the Founders Award for Volunteerism. We want to make sure you also learn about the 2019 recipient. So let's hear from retired land manager Phil Ogier to introduce the recipient.
Thanks for giving me this opportunity to comment on Walt Roy, the 2019 winner of the Volunteer of the Year. And certainly an award that Walt was very worthy of. Walt is just an unbelievable volunteer. And let me just say as an aside that the Southeast Land Trust really, we just couldn't exist as we currently do, as so many nonprofits have to exist without the help of volunteers. But back to Walt. Walt is an integral part of our management volunteer crew. He's always there when we need help. I should say when I needed, past tense, as the past manager, property manager for SELT. Every time we had a task, Walt was someone I could depend on for being there. He always showed up with his tools. Wasn't always smiling, but that was mostly because he and I were constantly teasing each other about something or other. It's kind of fitting. I'm sitting here like the rest of you, at home, but I'm in my barn. And I was thinking that just before this started, even here, Walt has played a part. Walt volunteered to come. Walt loves building projects, and he volunteered to come over the day we were erecting the barn and having a barn raising, and he just wanted to be part of that. Stayed all day long in what was, I think, the hottest day of the year. Stayed up to the end, and that's typical Walt. He's just a great volunteer for us and really a great person, and I'm so happy that he got that award, and I know he's going to continue doing the kinds of volunteer work that he's done, not only for SELT, but he's a great volunteer in his community on the Historical Society, the Conservation Commission, and I'm sure other things in town. So hats off to Walt, congratulations, and I look forward again to when we can get together and start working together on volunteer projects for SELT.
Well, thank you, Phil. It was good to see you again. And congratulations once again to Walt Roy. We sure wish we could do this in person, but since we're all separate, please feel free to raise your glass and toast Walt and all of our volunteers. We'll certainly be recognizing the 2020 Founders Award for Volunteerism later this fall. So the final part of our evening are closing comments pre-recorded by me. So I'll turn it over to that. And then at the end, we'll try to answer any questions that you might have.
So what's next for SELT? When the SELT team started planning for 2020, we knew it was going to be a big and exciting year, just not in the way that it turned out to be. 2020 represented the 40th anniversary of the organization, and what better way to celebrate it than with the theme of 40 and forward. Our plans included celebrating that anniversary and our future with a birthday bash here at the Burley Farms, where I am now. While the pandemic dashed our plans for an in-person event, it's my pleasure to be here and share the Burley Farms with you and the future we hope to establish at this amazing place. I've shared this vision with you before, but sitting here on the porch of the John Prescott Chase farmhouse, I begin to feel the vision and see it come alive. That vision includes establishing the Center for People and Nature as the headquarters for SELT and our work to save, share, and steward the lands you love. The center is more than just an office for SELT staff. Fundamentally, it is central to the long-term vision of SELT, and it will transform the Burley Farms into a hub for conservation, education, and community engagement. With the center, there will be indoor and outdoor space to support nature-based education by SELT and partner-driven programs. Offices for SELT and at least 2 nonprofit partners, a community meeting room available during normal business hours and after hours, an extensive public trail system already enjoyed by many and the highlight of Trail Fest, and a working farm growing fresh local food for our region. Our goal too is to inspire. The center will have net zero energy consumption driven by solar power produced on-site and a super energy efficient building. Beyond the new building, the historic 1785 John Prescott Chase farmhouse will be rehabilitated into 2 workforce housing units. As a building listed on the New Hampshire Registry of Historic Places, the farmhouse is part of the historic fabric of this special place. Recognizing this, SELT's board endorsed a plan to restore it into an economically productive building, breathing new life into its 200-plus-year-old bones. The farmhouse will support another key aspect of our future here. The Burley Farms has a long history of agriculture, including a dairy farm, apple orchard, and most recently, a community-supported agricultural vegetable farm. With the space for the farmer to live in, we see the land once again becoming a working farm. This is a bold, audacious plan that has been 5 years in the making, with momentum building. This past February, Epping granted the necessary planning approvals for this vision. Progress continued this month. Just 2 weeks ago, the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority awarded this project $450,000 in tax credits. Our hope is to break ground in 2021 and occupy the center in 2022. The 2019 pandemic and subsequent economic turmoil have reshaped so much in our world, and SELT is no different. We anticipate that our revenue for 2020 through 2022 will drop because of the recession. Thanks to your generosity and SELT's careful financial stewardship, we are in a better position than many. However, as stewards of your generous support, we've taken appropriate measures to restrain spending to respond to the economic uncertainty we're all currently facing. Beyond economic uncertainty, the challenge of this virus is the uncertainty of when we can return to in-person activities and whether people will be comfortable doing so, complicating decisions for hosting events. We recently concluded that this year, all of our major events, including the Wild and Scenic Film Festival and Trail Fest, will be virtual, reformatted, and re-envisioned for this pandemic era. You'll hear more about these details soon as we finalize the plans. I want to acknowledge and thank SELT's wonderful and amazing staff, who are the workhorses making all of our successes possible. If you talk or see them, please thank them for their good work, and of course, without shaking hands. While the stay-at-home order has expired, it will be some time before all of our staff return to the Exeter offices. When we do return, some of our faces may be different than you're used to seeing. We want to congratulate our development specialist, Allison Bolia, who will be welcoming her second child this summer and be on maternity leave until the fall. This July, David Johnson will be joining as our new communications staff person in the role of Senior Communications Advisor. And just 1 week before the pandemic, Amanda Hollenbach joined SELT as our easement stewardship manager, only to be promptly sent home to work virtually. As SELT looks to the future, we are updating our current strategic plan. The board and staff agree that our plan lays a great foundation for the next 5 years of our work. But we wanted to delve more deeply into some critical questions facing the organization. These include the scope and degree of our work in farmland conservation, how deeply we'd like to engage on recreation and trails, the proper role and partnerships possible for our nature-based education and engagement programming, as well as how we protect land through easements and ownerships. You may have noticed in the most recent issue of SELT Views, our paper newsletter, that we have a SELTI survey enclosed. I encourage you to complete the paper version or the online version to provide your feedback on these critical questions facing the organization. Your input is valuable and will be considered by the organization as we work to complete our strategic plan for 2020 through 25. In closing, as I think about the future of SELT and the Burley Farms, I am confident that we remain on the right track and closer than ever to realizing the vision of the Center for People and Nature. One thing I do know is that with your continued support, we will be able to advance our mission, weather this unprecedented storm of events, and come out the other side of this recession stronger than ever before. On behalf of all of us at SELT, thank you. Thank you for your giving and your continued support. We are so grateful and know that without you, our SELTies, we would not achieve all that we have.
So thank you all for participating in our 2020 Conservation Celebration. Before we finish, there's one staff person I have yet to thank. And I want to make sure I do that. And that's Kylie Noga, our Executive and Operations Assistant, who's just down the hall from me. She is the quiet behind the scenes person who helps make so much happen and make the smooth operations of the organization, especially during the pandemic era when she stayed in the office every day and kept things running smoothly. So thank you, Kylie, and thank you everybody that's supporting staff. At this opportunity, since we can't see you in person, we are offering the chance to ask questions or share comments. If you'd like to actually talk, you can raise your hand through the chat feature and Zoe will attempt to unmute you and let you speak. Sometimes that doesn't work, so if that is the case, you can submit a question through the chat and we'll try to answer it live right now. And Zoe's fielding some raised hands right now. It's a little bit of a process, so if you've done one of these webinars before, you're probably used to this. And when she asks you to unmute, you'll have a choice of whether you accept that or not, I believe. Okay. I think there's Reinhold Davis might have a question or comment.
Yeah.
You are unmuted now, Reinhold.
Yeah, no, I actually don't, but I do want to thank everybody for their hard work. It's a great organization that we've been supporting. And Zoe, you're really doing a lot of work right now with everybody home. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for sharing your feedback and appreciation. There's a question from, I think it's Dennis. Is the survey open to non-members? There is an opportunity for people to complete the survey and indicate in the survey if they are currently a member or not. So yes, we can have other people participate. All right, well, we seem to have no further questions, which is perfectly fine. And at this point, we'll close the meeting. And thank you all again for participating in this unusual format. And we sure look forward to seeing you in person soon enough. Thank you again.